Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Hard8, the truth for YouTube, your favorite commentator's favorite commentator. Yeah! What's up, people? What's happening? You already know the deal. If you missed my last video, the link is down below. Facebook group, gamer tags, all that good stuff is down below. So please go and check it out. Now, as we all know, this month marks the 2-year anniversary for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Yes, it's been 2 years. So basically, I just wanted to give y'all my thoughts on how I feel about this generation after 2 years. Now, to be honest with you, I feel like this is the worst generation I have ever been a part of. Yes. Now, hold on. Before the pussy start bleeding, let me explain. Now, as much as it pains me to say this, I think Shokyo was right when he made this statement, even though he only been around for maybe 2 of them. 2 generations. Little ass nigga, young ass nigga. I think Shokyo might have been correct. But here, let me explain on why I feel that way. Think about it like this, right? When you look at certain things, for instance, let's say like Uncharted, right? Or Gears of War. And you know, they got 3 games. You know, Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. And you say Uncharted 1 was the worst one out of all 3. That doesn't mean Uncharted 1 is a bad game. It just means out of these 3 games, Part 1 was the worst. Same thing with Gears. You might say, hey, Part 1 was the worst out of the 3 Gears. Doesn't mean that it's a bad game. It just means out of these 3, it was the worst. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it with the generations that I've been a part of. And that's how I'm trying to bring it across so y'all can understand exactly what I'm saying and not jump to conclusions. I'm not saying that this is a bad generation or anything like that, but out of all of the generations, it's been the worst. Now, let me give you something else to think about while I go ahead and talk and explain to you why I feel the way I feel. Let me give you something to think about. Compare this generation, now that we are 2 years in, compare this generation to previous generations that you've been a part of at the same mark, at the 2-year mark, or even at the beginning. And tell me that you feel the same way about this generation as you felt in previous generations at the same time period, 2 years in. Think about that for a minute. Think about the previous generations you've been a part of, after 2 years, how you felt about them, and then compare them to this generation. All right? Think about that while I go ahead and run my motherfucking mouth. You dig? So, I've been gaming for a long time, since the 80s. I've been gaming. My first console was the NES, but it's not the first console I played. I got an older brother who had an Atari. You know what I mean? And the Atari was cool. You know, I played it. I like games. So, you know, I did play it. That was my introduction into gaming. But before I actually got an NES, one of my brother's friends used to always bring his NES over before we actually got one in our household. And I remember his friend had like a Mario sticker right in the middle of the Nintendo console or whatever. I always remember that. Because it was special. So, when we got our own NES, it was like, wow, this is great, man. This is amazing. I mean, it's so much better than an Atari. It was just like, wow, this is next gen. It's great. It was a wow factor. You know what I mean? Loved it. The NES was great. Played the Sega Master System. That was great. You know, this is during a time where I didn't really have a preference. You know what I mean? I just like to play games. I didn't give a fuck what console it was on, what device played them. I just like to play games. Whether it was the Atari Lynx, the Game Gear, TurboGrafx 16, I didn't care. As long as I can play games, I played them. You know what I mean? So, you had the NES, you had that generation. It was amazing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was the childhood. Playing NES late nights with you and your cousins, friends coming over, trading games. That was the shit. Then you had the next generation, right? Which was the main two, was the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. I mean, what more can you say? It was fucking mind-blowing. You know what I mean? The graphical advancements, you know what I mean? Going from the NES to the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, it was crazy. It was mind-blowing. Now, you know, people always say that, you know, graphics ain't that important and things like that, but graphics has always been important, even from way back then. That's why we was always talking about 16 bits and things like that. Anytime a new generation was on the way, it was always, what does it look like? That was the first thing people asked before anything else. Motherfuckers talk about those graphics. Graphics has always been important. So when the Super Nintendo and the Genesis came out, it was like, wow. I mean, besides games having fantastic gameplay, it was a leap. It was a generation that you just was like, wow, I'm loving games right now, you know? And then you had the next generation, which was the Sony PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and the Nintendo 64, right? And that's my favorite generation. Once again, at this point in time, I really didn't have a preference either. Nintendo 64, Saturn, and the Sony I was loving it all. Great, amazed, blown away, was loving gaming. You know what I mean? When that generation started, it was just wow. You know what I mean? All of these generations just was a bigger wow than the last one. Like, wow, like it was just crazy. You know what I'm saying? Then you had the next generation, which I did miss, but I still remember reading a shit ton about it. You know what I mean? Because when I was upstate, I was getting Game Informer magazines. I remember going to the library, reading the Time magazine, and they had an article on the PlayStation 2 talking about all its technical advancements. And I remember just wishing I could fucking be playing some games right now. You know what I'm saying? And we already know that generation was bananas. You know, I did get a PlayStation 2 when I came home. It was the first console I got with a copy of God of War. And I just remember being like, I just loved it. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, this is amazing. You know? It was just crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, you had the 360, the PS3, and I remember when I got my first 360, and I remember when I got online for the first time. Wow! You know what I mean? Each generation, it just was like, wow. It just kept getting better and better and better. But then you come to this generation, right? And it's like, it's okay. It's like more of an it seems like it's an extension of last generation. You know what I mean? But you come to this generation and the wow factor just never was there. You know what I mean? The feeling that each previous generation gave me when it started and after 2 years in, it's just not here. And that's just being honest. You know what I mean? Now, I know a lot of people want to, they like to defend things that they purchase and things like that. But compare the way you feel about this generation right now and compare that to previous generations. Now, hey, if you feel like this is an amazing generation, that's cool. It's probably your first. It's your opinion. You know what I mean? I respect that. But this generation doesn't do anything for me like it did in previous generations. You know, the other day I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I found myself playing pretty much all old games right now. All last generation games. I just went through all 3 Uncharted, right? 1, 2, and 3. My multiplayer games that I'm playing, right? Gears of War, old. Last of Us, old. Battlefield 4, old. That's 2 years old. You know what I mean? All of the games that I'm playing right now, like all of the games that's in my current rotation are old. You understand what I'm saying? Or they just don't feel like a next generation game. It just doesn't feel like a next gen experience. You know what I mean? For instance, right now, a lot of y'all are playing, Halo 5, right? You know what I mean? I don't like Halo 5. But even if I did like Halo 5, does Halo 5 feel like a true next generation game? No, it doesn't. You understand what I'm saying? And the games that we did get that were true next generation, either people didn't like them or they were lacking in content, right? So you look at a game like Rise, which I like. I like Rise. I beat it multiple times. I like Rise. I think it's a pretty cool game. It's not the best, but it's cool. That's a game that gives you a next generation feel as far as the way it looks, at least. Because like I said, going to a next generation has always been about what the graphics look like. Before anybody care about the gameplay or anything like that, it's always, how does it look? First thing you do, when we was in school back in the day, you know what I mean? When the PlayStation and the Saturn and the Nintendo 64 was on the way, when we went to school, first thing we was talking about was the graphics. Yo, you see the way Ridge Racer looks? You see the way Toshinden looks? Wow! That's the first thing we talked about, was how does it look? And when you look at this generation, when we do get a game that looks next gen, it's either most people don't like it or it's lacking in content. So you look at Rise. Most people didn't like it. And people that did like it, you realize it's lacking in content, right? You look at a game like The Order 1886, which looks like a next-gen game. Nobody can deny that. But what happened? A lot of people don't like it. It's lacking in content. Infamous Second Son, same thing. When we do finally get a game that look like, yo, we on a new console, it's lacking, or the general consensus is it sucks. You understand what I'm saying? And I look at it now like, what true next generation multiplayer game am I playing right now? What true next generation multiplayer game is available right now? You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. Like, look at what we got right now. Look at what we have right now and tell me that this shit compares to previous generations at the same time period. In my opinion, it doesn't. It doesn't even come close. 2 years in the last generation, I remember having a blast. I was just telling Jack Moo the other day. We was the day before yesterday, I think it was. We were playing 2K, and I was done. We were done playing 2K. And we were just sitting there busting it up, and I'm like, yo, I'm bored as fuck right now. Like, I'm bored. Like, it's boring. I'm like, yo, the PlayStation 4 is dry as fuck right now. Not saying that the Xbox One is even more better. Next generation is dry as fuck right now. That's how I was feeling. I was just feeling like I'm bored. You know what I'm saying? Like, I done played enough Last of Us. I done played enough Battlefield 4. I done played enough Gears. I'm fucking bored. Can I get a brand new next generation experience? This is what I'm looking for. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just like it's not really here. Now, yes, we got games coming out, but still, none of these games make me feel like, wow, this could only be done on the Xbox One or the PS4. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got what? Friday, we got Call of Duty, Black Ops 3. Yeah, Call of Duty. Another Call of Duty, right. What new experience am I getting out of that? You know what I mean? You got Fallout 4, which who knows how the game's going to be. I really don't care, but at least it could look good, and it doesn't. You know what I mean? But, of course, graphics don't matter anymore. You know, only in certain cases. You know what I mean? You got Star Wars Battlefront, which I am looking forward to as far as a multiplayer game. I can finally play a fresh, new multiplayer game. And it looks pretty decent, but does it look like anything that can't be done on last generation? It can be done, just with a lower resolution. You know what I'm saying? With games like The Order 1886, those games were games that were like, hey, now this cannot be done on a last generation console. You understand what I'm saying? We don't have that right now. At least I don't feel like we have that right now. Yes, there are games coming out, but what game is really separating itself from last generation as there was with previous generations? You understand what I'm saying? We don't really have that right now, and we're 2 years in with only like 3 years left, correct? Something like that. This is going to be like a pretty short generation. Well, it's going to pretty much return to the average time that a generation usually lasts, which is about 5 years. At least that's what they say. You understand what I'm saying? So when I compare this to previous generations, this is the worst. You know what I mean? The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One can't touch the feeling that the NES, the original NES gave me. It can't touch the feeling that the original Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo gave me. It can't touch what the original PlayStation Sorry for the audio. Share Factory getting on my fucking nerves. But anyway, this generation can't touch with the original PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and the Nintendo 64. It can't touch that feeling that those consoles gave me. Nor can it touch with the 360 and the PlayStation 3 gave me either. It just doesn't compare. So when you look at all of the generations, this is the worst so far. Now, they still have time to turn things around. But so far, 2 years in, this is the worst compared to previous generations. Now, like I said in the beginning, doesn't mean that this generation is bad, doesn't mean that it sucks or anything like that. It's just overall, compared to all the other generations, this one is the worst. If you had to give a grade for each generation that you've been a part of 2 years in, this will be my lowest. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by this is the worst generation. Yes, there were still games that were enjoyable. Yeah, there were a lot of games that I enjoyed so far. A lot of games I beat this year that I enjoyed. But I'm just saying, overall, this is the worst generation that I've been a part of. And I've pretty much been a part of, 8, 9 of them? Something like that. Whatever. But yeah, I've been a part of gaming since 85, 86 is when I really got into it. So yeah, I've been around a long time, man. You know what I'm saying? And I've been seeing a lot of consoles launch and things like that. And overall, this one is the worst. It really is. You know what I mean? But hopefully things change. We still got some time. Got a lot of great games on the way. So we'll see how it fares when it's all over, said, and done. But anyway, sorry for the audio hiccup. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section about this. Sound off. If you liked the video, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. I didn't make this video to piss anybody off. I just wanted to have a real discussion about how I feel with this generation thus far. So, let me know what y'all think down in the comment section. This is your boy Hard8. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. Deuces.